President Park Geun-hye resends request for parliamentary approval for 2 cabinet nominees while withdrawing a 3rd nominee accused of plagiarism. South Korea sets up a committee aimed at getting ready for a unified Korea amid tensions over Pyongyang's recent missile launches. And Israel accepts an Egyptian ceasefire proposal, but Hamas doesn't appear to be honoring the truce, firing more than 20 rockets into Israel after the deadline. Hello and welcome to the newscast. Thanks for joining us tonight. President Park Geun-hye has been under pressure from the opposition party to withdraw some of her cabinet nominations. Today, she decided to drop one of them. Kim Myung-soo is out as education minister nominee, and one of her top political aides is in instead. The president, meanwhile, asked the parliament to reconsider 2 other nominations that remain held up. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
President Park's spokesperson Min Kyung-wook on Tuesday said the president had withdrawn Kim Myung-soo's nomination for education minister and second deputy prime minister after he was grilled by parliament over allegations of thesis plagiarism. President Park quickly named 5-term ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker and former party leader Hwang Woo-yeol as the new nominee for that post. Hwang's expertise in the field from his time as the chair of the Parliamentary Education Committee and his abilities as a mediator were highly noted. Selecting her political aide and a prominent figure within the party is thought to be a part of President Park's strategic move to expand her authority over state affairs. Hwang has also worked closely with Choi Kyung-hwan, who's been tapped as the finance minister and first deputy. Choi was the floor leader when Hwang headed the party. As for the 2 other cabinet nominees that remain unconfirmed over allegations of perjury and real estate speculation, the president requested that the parliament reconsider them. While midnight Tuesday is the deadline, the president is widely expected to appoint 7 of the 8 new cabinet ministers without parliamentary approval on Wednesday. Meeting with the ruling party's new leader Kim Moo-sung earlier Tuesday, President Park stressed the need for a new cabinet and the party leadership to cooperate on a series of bills related to the economy and another that came about in the aftermath of April's ferry tragedy. On Tuesday, the president also named a safety management expert as her new vice security minister and an administrative veteran as her new senior presidential secretary for personnel affairs. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye has announced the lineup for a preparatory committee that will set the groundwork for an eventual unification of the 2 Koreas. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details on who will make up the committee and what they will be doing.
The 50-member Joint Government Civilian Committee chaired by President Park has been tasked with seeking ways to systematically prepare for Korean reunification and setting a direction for the unprecedented process. 2 vice chairs have been named: Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae, representing the government, and former senior presidential foreign secretary Chung Jong-woo, who is currently the chair professor at Incheon National University, representing the civilian side. 29 civilian members with backgrounds related to reunification issues will then be divided into 4 subcommittees, according to their fields of expertise: foreign affairs and security, the economy, society and culture, and politics and law. They will be joined by another group of specialized advisors for in-depth discussions and research, with an ultimate goal of formulating a blueprint for a unified Korea. On the government side, the unification minister will be joined by 10 members, including the ministers of finance, foreign affairs and defense, as well as the senior presidential foreign secretary. As President Park had proposed during talks with the floor leaders of the ruling and opposition parties last week, the policy chiefs of both parties have been named as the 2 members representing parliament. 6 members from state-run research institutes have been tasked with boosting cooperation between the government and civilian sector. While not included in the 50-member list, the presidential office said advisors from civic groups, the media, and educational community will be asked to meet with the committee on a regular basis to offer their views on reunification. The committee will convene for the first time in early August to decide on its goals and direction. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
The ruling Saenuri Party earlier this week chose a 5-term lawmaker, Kim Moo-sung, to lead the Conservative Party for the next 2 years. And it looks like it will be a different 2 years than the previous ones, as the new party leader has signaled to take a different approach when it comes to the party's relations with the Park Geun-hye administration. Kim Myung-gil tells us more.
5-term lawmaker Kim Moo-sung, who represents the non-mainstream faction of the party, secured a comfortable win over pro-Park Geun-hye heavyweight Seo Chung-won at the Saenuri Party convention on Monday. With Kim now in charge, the ruling party's relationship with the presidential house of Cheongwa-dae is expected to undergo significant changes. The newly elected leader promised to establish a relationship of healthy tension between the party and the president, and to speak out against President Park Geun-hye's administration when necessary, while at the same time vowing to help out the president in her drive for reforms. He has also signaled he would reach across the aisle to the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, which favored Kim in the Saenuri Party leadership race due to his relative independence from the president's influence. All are challenges Kim faces over the next couple of years, but his most immediate one will be preparing his party for by-elections in just 2 weeks' time, in which 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs. Kim Myung-gil, ARIRANG News.
South Korea has opened the door for government funds to be used for humanitarian aid to North Korea for the first time since sanctions were imposed on the regime in 2010. As our Hwang Sung-hee tells us, the move could signal a possible shift in inter-Korean relations.
South Korea's Ministry of Unification said Tuesday it would use its government-led inter-Korean cooperation fund to provide humanitarian aid to the North Korean people.
The Unification Ministry has repeatedly expressed the will to provide humanitarian aid that will be of practical help to the North Korean people and to cooperate in the agriculture and the livestock sectors.
The government plans to make a total of 3 billion won, roughly $3 million, available for groups that help in the medical, agriculture, and livestock sectors. This marks the first time Seoul will be using public funds for humanitarian aid to Pyongyang since heavy economic sanctions were imposed on the regime in 2010, following a North Korean attack on a South Korean warship. An official at the Unification Ministry said the move does not mean the sanctions have been lifted, but that the government is merely providing humanitarian support for certain sectors. Experts say it could lead to a shift in inter-Korean relations.
Talks of a peaceful peninsula and better inter-Korean ties are highly likely when the Pope visits in August and during the Asian Games in September. It's possible that the cross-border policies of President Park Geun-hye and Kim Jong-un will become more flexible in the process.
But stumbling blocks remain. Chances of more missile launches by the North and joint military drills between South Korea and the United States that begin on Wednesday are almost certain to complicate matters. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
Korea lobbed strong criticism at Tokyo on Tuesday for the recent visit by 5 Japanese ministers to the highly controversial Yasukuni War Shrine. During a press briefing on this Tuesday, Foreign Ministry spokesperson No Kwang-il said the act was a direct challenge to Japan's neighbors that has suffered at the hands of their past militarism. The 5 Japanese cabinet members dedicated paper lanterns on Sunday at the Yasukuni Shrine, which commemorates Japanese war dead, including several Class A war criminals from the Second World War.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chae-ri for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to. With the global economy still sputtering along, Korea's largest automaker is stepping up efforts to increase its presence in emerging markets, particularly in the 4 BRICS countries. Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors controlled 11% of the combined market in Brazil, Russia, India, and China in the first 5 months of this year, second only to Volkswagen. But during the period, the Korean auto group suffered an on-year sales drop of more than 5% each in Russia and Brazil, and a 3% fall in India, largely because of the increasing presence there by Japanese competitors. Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Chung Mong-gu recently ordered measures to better compete with Toyota, Nissan, and Honda, which together grabbed a 9% share in the BRICS. A new economic team under President Park Geun-hye is set to launch tomorrow. They will have a full plate at a time when the country is suffering from sluggish domestic consumption and low growth. Hwang Jae reports on what their plan is to prop up this economy.
Korea's new economic team, which will be led by incoming Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, has one goal: to spur growth. To achieve it, the team is expected to first fiddle with the nation's real estate market. Officials at the Finance Ministry say a set of economic policies for the second half of this year is expected to include measures like easing loan-to-value ratio limits for mortgage lending to 70%. That means homebuyers would be able to borrow up to $140,000 when buying a house worth $200,000. The current loan-to-value ratio stands at 50% for those living in the nation's capital area, which allows them to borrow just $100,000 when purchasing the same house. Homebuyers who are short of cash typically are forced to borrow money from non-banking financial institutions that charge them higher interest rates. Economic policymakers expect people moving their loans from non-banking lenders to banks to spend more, which would also lead to pulling the country out of its sluggish domestic demand trap. While many are concerned that easing housing loan regulations could lead to more household debt, which already hovers around $980 billion, the nation's real estate market is welcoming the government's expected move.
Easing regulations won't really lead to more household debt because there aren't a lot of speculative investments in the real estate market these days.
Economists still add that the government should also set up countermeasures to address the side effects that could occur from easing housing loan regulations. Hwang Jae, ARIRANG News.
More bleak news for young Korean job seekers who are already faced with a highly competitive jobs market and fewer opportunities than their predecessors. A new report by Statistics Korea shows that it currently takes an average of 12 months for someone between the ages of 15 and 29 to find a job, up 1 month from last year. This is the longest stretch of time for a job search since 2006 in this country. The report also shows that the elderly are increasingly feeling financial pressures. Some 60% of seniors between the ages of 55 and 79 said they wanted to find a job to help support their families. Customs officials had a busy first half of the year. The Korea Customs Service says it confiscated 51 kilograms of illegal drugs from January to June, up more than 60% on year, and the most on record for a 6-month period. Methamphetamines, the country's most abused illegal narcotic, made up nearly 80% of all drugs smuggled in. Customs officials say most drugs came into Korea in one of two ways: either in massive amounts through international criminal organizations from Mexico or China, or in small amounts from overseas through the Postal Service. The Customs Service says they will share their information with other countries to cut down on the amount of illegal drugs being smuggled into Korea. If you use an iPad and have a skin rash, there may be a correlation between the two. The Pediatrics Medical Journal recently featured the case study of an 11-year-old boy who is being treated for allergic contact dermatitis in San Diego. Doctors found that the boy's first-generation iPad, which he used every day, contained nickel in its outside coating. They advised him to refrain from using the tablet PC altogether, but before you run to your local Apple store to file a complaint, it should be pointed out that it's not yet certain whether all iPads contain nickel. Apple said in a statement that its products are all made with high-quality materials and added that the allergies like this one reported are extremely rare. A survey of thousands of foreign tourists has found that Myeongdong, one of Seoul's main shopping and tourism districts, is the most popular and satisfying tourism destination in Korea. The Korea Culture and Tourism Institute said Tuesday that out of 12,000 foreign respondents who have traveled to Korea last year, almost 60% visited Myeongdong. At 33%, it was also the most liked location among foreign travelers. Dongdaemun Market, famous for its fashion district and its new cultural landmark Dongdaemun Design Plaza, was the second most popular spot. Gyeongbokgung Palace was in third. 7 out of 10 visitors came to Korea for shopping, 4 out of 10 for the food, followed by city touring and nature experience. And on the cultural front, a new photo exhibition opened this Tuesday in Seoul. It features the works of U.S. photographer Jordan Matter, who first gained worldwide recognition for his project called Dancers Among Us. He is premiering more than 60 new images in Korea, and our Park Ji-won sat down with him to find out what inspires him.
It's all about the joy and passion of being alive. None of these images have been digitally modified, and the dancers and the photos aren't relying on the help of wires or trampolines to enhance their jumps. Photographer Jordan Matter's works aim to reflect the beauty and wonders of everyday life, capturing what he calls that one magical moment.
You go through this series of events every single day that we just pass through without any sort of like recognition of their beauty and of the specialness of them. The magical moments means to me, stack all of the moments of your life up together and make each one as magical as possible.
First inspired by his 3-year-old son, who was living a life full of joy and full of wonder in the moment, Matter came up with the idea of taking pictures through the eyes of a child. He thought dancers would best represent the beauty of each passing moment.
They embody this kind of beauty and this emotion, and they're able to physicalize that and show us a story. And so it made perfect sense if I wanted to create and almost make the ordinary extraordinary in a way and show everyday moments, but make them more extreme and more beautiful.
His works have touched the hearts of many, and his book, Dancers Among Us, made the New York Times bestseller list. He says for the best results, he always lets spontaneous moments happen.
All of it is serendipity. All of it is luck. If you can try to allow life to happen and then to react to it, as opposed to trying to hold on so tightly and control it, if you can let go of control a bit, then you will be very happy to see all of the surprises that await you.
During his stay in Korea, he will collaborate with Korean dancers and Taekwondo martial artists to capture more magical images that represent the wonders of life. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
After over a week of bloodshed in the Gaza Strip, Israel has agreed to a ceasefire that would halt its military offensive against Hamas. With more on this story, of course, our Paul E. at the News Center is joining us. What are the details of this peace deal?
Well, the proposal was laid out by Egypt to de-escalate the situation in Gaza with an immediate ceasefire on both sides of the conflict. And it appears Israel is keeping its end of the bargain by halting air and naval assaults as of 9 a.m. local time. But more than 20 rockets have allegedly been fired into Israeli territory since then. Under the terms of the ceasefire, high-level Israeli and Hamas delegations are to hold a series of meetings in Cairo to begin negotiations. A swift agreement is unlikely, with Hamas leaders calling for an end to Israel's blockade of Gaza and the release of hundreds of its members. At Israeli military headquarters in Tel Aviv, the security cabinet convened by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it voted to approve the truce.
We said all along that our goal is to bring sustained peace and security to the citizens of Israel and to end the rocket fire on our cities. If the rocket fire nevertheless continues, if Hamas rejects the Egyptian proposal, we of course are ready to continue our operation.
The Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, has yet to respond to Egypt's proposal. Palestinian health officials say at least 192 people, many of them civilians, have been killed and some 1,400 wounded during the week-long conflict.
I see. Now turning to Russia, a deadly subway crash has killed at least 10 people so far in Moscow and injured more than 100 others. Paul, what's the extent of the damage?
This is one of the most serious accidents in one of the world's oldest underground railways. The incident occurred when a subway train went off the rails between two stations on the Moscow metro during the morning hours on Tuesday. The Russian Health Ministry says at least 200 passengers were evacuated, with some 50 people who were in serious condition airlifted to nearby hospitals. Russian news agencies reported earlier that 20 people have been trapped in one of the damaged rail cars. A spokesman for the emergencies ministry said a power surge had caused the train to stall and eventually derail. Authorities say there are no signs of foul play and that they are speaking to metro officials to determine the exact cause of the accident.
And heading now to France, where the country is marking its annual National Day, which actually falls on the 100th anniversary of the start of the First World War this time around. Fill us in on the celebrations there.
Well, a spectacular fireworks display lit up the Paris night sky on Monday, with this year's celebrations dedicated, as you just mentioned, to the victims of the Great War. Thousands of French citizens and tourists line up to see the pyrotechnics, which were fired for the first time from the iconic Eiffel Tower. The 35-minute light show was accompanied by classical music such as Beethoven's Ode to Joy and more modern classics like John Lennon's Imagine. Earlier, French President François Hollande watched a military parade along the Champs-Élysées with representatives from all countries that took part in World War I. The French National Day, or Bastille Day, marks the storming of Bastille prison in 1789 by angry Paris crowds and helped spark the French Revolution.
And finally, the operator of the popular messaging service application, Line, has reportedly taken the first step toward going public on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. I know it's very popular in Japan and in many, many Asian countries. How much is Line going to be worth?
Well, the initial public offering for the Japanese operator Line is estimated to be valued at nearly $10 billion on the country's main stock exchange. According to Reuters, an inside source said the company applied for the IPO 2 weeks ago and has hired Nomura Holdings and Morgan Stanley to manage the filing. Line, which is owned by Korean internet search giant Naver, is also reportedly considering listing on the New York Stock Exchange. The move comes as the messaging app has rapidly expanded overseas in Asia and America, with the company boasting over 480 million in global downloads. Line and Naver, meanwhile, have declined to comment on the upcoming deal. Jenny?
All right, Paul, thank you so much for those stories, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours. Happy Tuesday evening, everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your latest weather update. So today was slightly cooler than yesterday thanks to cloudy skies, and at the moment the south of the country is under the influence of a monsoonal front which is raining down there, and this rainfall will continue through Thursday, dropping 30 to 80 millimeters on Jeju and 20 to 60 millimeters on the southern coast of the country. Monsoonal fronts will gradually make its way up to the central regions on Friday, leading to showers, but before then, hot and sunny conditions will continue to stick around, so make sure to keep yourselves hydrated. Taking a closer look at Wednesday's readings, Seoul soars to a hot 32, while rainy Daegu and Gwangju hit 30 and 29.
On to other places. A heavy rainfall watch has been issued for the mountainous areas of Jeju, and daytime highs there will peak at 26, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang make it to 24 and 29. That's all for now. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening, and I'll be back with more updates after 10.
Thank you very much, Pyongyang, for that. And that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News at 8. Thanks for watching.